So we can start now, I guess. So we continue our discussion on the free particle. I think we covered a few things. So today we'll just finish it. So let us look at some of the subtle things. Okay. So let us consider the commutator between H and Px. We have already said that free particle wave function is an eigenfunction of the momentum operator. So what it means is that there is a simultaneous eigenfunction which will be eigenfunctions of both H and Px operator. If that happens, the commutator should actually vanish, right? That is the meaning of commutator we have learned. So you can actually see that H and Px commutator, you can actually derive this expression. I guess so I think you can just derive it. I'll just write here. Yeah. So H So in this case, your dv dx is actually 0, so you will get a 0. And you can prove it that the free particle wave functions are eigenfunctions of the px operator. This way, you can take for simplicity e to the power ikx c or e to the power minus ikx c. If you take function and operate on px on that, you exercise to see that cross psi h cross k psi x. So it is eigenfunction of the plus h cross k eigenvalue. And if you take this one, you will similarly get the minus h cross k as eigenvalue. So I proved that, but I leave it for an interesting exercise. So if I take this as say e to the power, it is trivial for me if I take e to the power I kx or e to the power minus ikx, I can easily prove that these are eigenfunctions of the px operator, right? But I have also said that you can also equivalently take the real forms, the sin x and cos kx. So I now ask you this question. If I take these eigenfunctions, do I see that these are eigenfunctions of the px operator? Now I am asking a question to you. Are these eigenfunctions of the px operator? So if I take px, okay, without apart from the constant, okay, there is a ignore. So what will happen? It will not give you the function x back, right? Similarly also for the right? So I can see that these are not eigenfunctions of the px operator. So is there a problem? Is there a problem? Because you said that hpx is equal to 0. So that means I should have a complete set of eigenfunctions between h and px operator. And use this set of functions e to the power ikx and e to the power minus ikx, I can see that that is true. But I also, because I if I take this set of functions, I say that these are not eigenfunctions of the these are not eigenfunctions of the px and pi operator. So is there a problem in quantum mechanics? Somebody can answer this question. You understand the question, somebody? Whoever wants to say anything. I don't want to take name. Just say, because we can see then what is going on. So that leads us to a very interesting topic to discuss actually. Let us say, so what is the meaning of simultaneous? I'm explaining that. So what it means is that if you have two operators A and B whose commutator is 0, that means you can always find a complete set of common eigenfunctions shared between these two operators. What does it mean? It means that suppose these are my eigenfunctions of say psi. What it means is that, so every time you see a bracket, that means there is a set of functions, not just one. There is a set of functions in each of these. Okay, this I just, for simplicity, I just wrote two sets of functions which can be eigenfunctions of A and B. Sorry, which can be eigenfunctions set for operator A. And I wrote three sets of functions which can be eigenfunctions for the operator B. So theta I, phi I, chi I, each of, remember, not one function. So what it means is that these commutator relations that you have read, what it actually means that for there can be such there can be conjugate sets of variables represented by their corresponding operators whose commutator, when they are, that means that there is a common set of eigenfunctions between these two operators. So in this particular case, there is a set of operators which is called phi I, and which is common between A and B, right? So, but it doesn't mean that this zero commutator is 0 doesn't mean that every set of eigenfunctions of A will be also eigenfunctions of B. That is not the case. What it similarly, every B can have many sets of eigenfunctions, but commutator 0 doesn't mean that all set of eigenfunctions A. But all it says that there has to be at least one set of complete set of eigenfunctions between A. That means, but here also you should realize this I is a set. That means I can go from say I is equal to 1 to 5, 1 to infinity. I can go I 1 to say 30, or I can go 1 to, right? So what it means is that if phi I is a complete set of eigenfunction, that means all the i's for which this set is an eigenfunction of the operator A, the same, all the i's must also be eigenfunctions of the B. So if you work with I is equal to 1 to 5, you must have here. If you work with I is equal to 1 to 30, you cannot have anything but one less than 1 to 30. Similarly, you cannot have I is equal to 1 to 30 here and 1 to 25 here. That is not possible. So that means, that is what is the meaning. That means all the eigenfunctions of this set must be this set. Okay. So you see that if we understand that, then there is no problem in quantum mechanics, because there is, you can always write the eigenfunctions in the equivalent way without losing anything. So if that happens, then ikx and e to the power minus ikx are eigenfunctions of the px operator, but your sin kx and cos kx are not eigenfunctions of the px operator, but there is no violation of quantum mechanics. Okay, if that is what understood, then we go to the parity operator, another operator. To the parity operator, you can see that parity operator simply changes the sign of x. So if you operate if you operate the parity operator on psi x, your function, this is basically doing minus x. So you can see that if I take an psi plus x function, which is a, what will happen if I operate p on this function? This will change x to minus x. But you know that even functions will always give you a plus 1 if you make it minus x. So you get plus 1 as the eigenvalue. Similarly, if you have a function which is odd function, you can actually write minus x. So you can do this. So eventually you get the psi plus and psi minus function as eigenfunctions of. So I can write that parity operator gives me +1 and minus the eigenvalues. Okay. Now what happens to, so here is an example. You can see that my sin x function, if I operate on the parity, if I operate the parity operator on this sin x, I can actually get -1. And if I take the cos x, I get a eigenvalue of +1. So after we have understood this parity operator, you can now operate the parity operator on Hamiltonian. What will happen? So I give you 30 seconds for you to write what happens to H cross, what happens to the commutator between H and P. So forget it. In general, what should be the answer? -30 seconds you can take to work out. So let us see. So I can write in Hamiltonian, say minus H cross square. So let us say write d square dx square and then parity operator. So what will happen? I can take this guy whole stuff and then this operator, right? So this, then this. So you can write this. I can remove the constants. Okay, they are of very little value. So d square dx square p. Say suppose I gave fx minus plus Vx P Fx. Okay. Similarly, I have to write the other two. P d square dx square F minus P Vx. Okay. So P So if you do that, what will happen? So what we will see is this, what I have written here. So this will be, you will see that the commutator will vanish if under x to x transformation x of minus x. Why? Because you see, so your PV, so this is be operated 2 times, right? So you also have to consider what is in the symmetry of the Vx, right? If your Vx is symmetric, that means if your V minus x is equal to Vx, operate V, when you operate P on Vx, you will actually write Px is to be V minus x. Okay. So you'll see that this commutator will actually vanish when H is actually x, H is even under x to minus x transformation is also even, right? So in our case, whether H is even or not, it is even because you have a double derivative operator d square dx square that is even. So the whole question is about the symmetry of the Vx. So if your Vx is symmetric, right, then the Hamiltonian will actually commute with the parity operator. If your Vx is not symmetric, it will not happen. So that means what? If I have a potential which is symmetric, right, like your free particle. So is the free particle wave function symmetry? It is symmetry because it has a plus x cos x parity. You can see that your parity operator will actually commute with the Hamiltonian. It is a case, and because your Vx is constant, you have a plus x Hpx will be 0. So that means the pre-particle wave functions are also eigenfunctions of the parity operator, right? So that means something very general. If I have a potential which is symmetric, for example, you have read particle in a box problem, we are going to see it. So if you make the particle in a box problem to be a symmetric box, that is also a symmetric potential, right? But in general, the pre-particle problem is also a symmetric potential. So in these cases, say that the Hamiltonian operator and P operator will commute. So that means the Schrodinger equation solution, the wave functions are also eigenfunctions of the parity operator. Okay, so now I can come to an discussion. So there is a term called constants of motion. I have written an operator that doesn't have explicit time dependence and that commutes with H is actually a constant of motion. So there is a little equation, you can find the derivation, or you might have derived yourself. It is very easy to derive. So I just leave it to you to see. But what is important here is that you look at this expression. So this is the expectation value of the psi O psi, okay? And this is the derivative, d dt, time derivative of the expectation value, equals to minus 1 over I h cross. This is the operator. This operator's commutator with the Hamiltonian operator and that expectation value and cross O, sorry, HO operator, and then expectation value. These are the psi star, psi h psi means expectation value plus psi expectation value of the time derivative of the operator. Now from this expression you can see that if you're, as I said, if you do not have any explicit time dependence, that means what? Dt term is 0. This term will vanish. And if you do not have any explicit dependence and if it commits with H, when it commits with H, I have told you it commits with H if your potential is symmetric, right? If you can find an operator, operator, but for an arbitrary operator, if that operator commits with the H and it doesn't have an explicit time dependence, you can say that the observable corresponding to this operator O is actually a constant of motion. Okay, so these are some other exercises. You should work it out. Hx is equal to minus h crosses over dsm, and expectation value of x is equal to 0. Px, these are left for your exercises. Please do that. If you get trouble, we'll see that. So I have told you that sin x, cos x are not eigenfunctions of the Px operator, although Px h is equal to 0. Why does it happen? Because degenerate eigenfunctions of energy need not be, right? So however, one can form linearly independent eigenstates, which is e to the power ikx plus e to the power minus ikx, which will become the eigenfunctions of the momentum operator, right? The last thing I want to tell about this problem is that pre-particle potential cannot bind a particle because there is no, they have depression. Okay, so with this I think we'll leave this problem because we have so many things. So let me see, I have been told to do this kind of stuff, you know, this allow. Okay, let us see, let us forget it. Okay, so I think with this we leave this place, we leave this topic and we go to the next problem. What is our particle in a box problem?
So,
Remember,
sir, I'm
please.
sorry to interrupt, but could you
No, you should not be sorry.
no, but could you please teach a little bit more slowly because it's becoming very difficult to catch otherwise.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it will be. It is very difficult to know whether it is fast or slow. Okay, sure. Uh, but you know, what is your name, please?
Audrija.
Adrija. Okay, let me tell you
Hmm.
something. These things, I mean, except the derivation part of this psi a is equal to e to these things already written. These are all, these things I also explained. Only thing that I left for you is this. Okay, and here is this one, right? So I tell you for that, don't worry about. Although I tell you in the class that you should not you should not memorize any equation because that is counterproductive. But sometimes I'll tell you, not worry about some of the equations if you do not understand. If you do not want the derivation of this equation, that is fine. But you make sure that you understand the derivation of these equations. Okay, I will go slowly. Sure. So
Thank you,
now,
sir.
sure, no problem. And that is why I told you, we are in the beginning, we'll go writing a few equations is not the importance of this class. What is important for this class is that you understand what is the connection of this with benzene molecule, with your chemistry. So that is our priority. We must not lose sight of the fact that. But I do not want to bombard you with the hydrogen atom problem in the beginning. you know so it is very important to realize how the things develop. So that is why we started with the pre-particle problem, and there will be many such model problems which we have to encounter. In the very beginning class I told you the hierarchy of the problems. If you are there, you have seen that. So okay, so for example, how do I do HPX? But you should always stop me if there is a problem. Some equations which I may skip the derivation, but some equations I really want you to understand everything. Okay, let us see what is the problem with HPX or how to deal with this. Okay, let us do one of these stuff. HPX, okay. What is the trick? So these are both operators. Okay, so I can write H, X, these are operators, remember. Fx, I take an x operator. Why I take f to be a function of x? Because I assume that this is only x. X means a position operator, right? So that means my Hamiltonian, I can write a three-dimensional full operator for the sake of argument, but it is not anything new because my one-dimensional Hamiltonian is good for discussing this problem. Right? Why? Let us see that. Now, when you do the commutator, you know that you have to take a function. It's a very technical stuff, but we have to understand all these details. So, why should I take only fx? Why fx is okay for me? Because in general, if you have a three-dimensional function, two-dimensional function, you should take fxy. Or if you have a three-dimensional function, you should take fxyz. Right? But why I am happy to take only fx? Because fx is enough to illustrate the basic things of this problem. So that insight you have to develop with time, because why it is not necessary, that will only complicate my, it's not going to add anything good. Because if you have xy, then that will automatically commute with x, and this y in the Hamiltonian will automatically commute with x, because if you have an y x, what will happen? They will always commute, right? So that is why there is no point in the Hamiltonian. It is only x is good enough, right? So that is why I am not taking z. Okay, so let us erase these guys. Okay, so I can now write what is my Hamiltonian. Some, please write in your own. So I can write for general h cross square over twice m. Let us write d square dx square plus bx. I need bare minimum this, okay, and then x, right? So I need to have, so that means I have an b, a plus b operator commute with an operator c, right? And you can easily write that equal to a c b c. Yes. So I need to find out the commutator between AC and BC. What is my easy step? My easy step is Bx. So BC. Let us see. BC is what? Because that is the easy things I first want. So Bx into x minus x into Bx fx. Sorry. Oh, it is so difficult to write. Okay, let us put fx like this. So that means Bx into x into fx minus x into Bx into fx. Right? So you can see that if you have a simple potential like these ones that we are working, this term will actually finish because your Vx is a function, x is a function. It is so this is x operator in fx. What will happen? It will just multiply, right? So if I take fx is any function, sine x or x square or whatever, it will simply multiply. Now Vx operating on fx, what will happen? Vx operator, it will operate and it will not unless you have a Vx which is derivative or integral related. This is a simple multiplicative operator, you can take it like that, right? So that means in this particular case it will be absolutely zero, no matter whichever potential you are taking. For our 1D cases, 2D cases, etc., the simple potentials will always give you zero because they are just working like a multiplicative operator. So you are left with this exercise AC. AC, right? AC means what? You can write it is a double derivative d square dx square and x operator, right, with the constant. So I can write that d square dx square into x fx, right, minus x d2 dx2 fx, right? So now treat them as operators. So just work it out. Somebody just so now this has to be like this. So there is nothing to do in the last term. So this will be just x. So this is x d2f dx2, right? So all you have to do is this term. So what is this term? d2 df, right? So you need to work out. So what is happening with d dx x f x first, and then you have to do the second derivative, right? So what is happening with this guy? So this will give you d dx, which is 1 into fx plus x df dx. Okay, so you need to do another derivative because it is double derivative. So d dx of fx plus x dx. Okay, so what will happen? Df dx plus, now you have a product function d dx of x, which is 1 into df dx, right, plus x f dx2. Okay, x d2f dx2. Okay, so what will happen? That means now you can see that there is an x d2f dx2, which is this guy, and this guy will actually vanish because there will be minus sign. So you will be left with 2 df dx. Okay, so that is what has happened. 2 dx, and there will be half from h cross square by twice m. So that will cancel because we have not kept the minus h crosses by twice m in the exercise. So it will cancel. So you will get minus h cross square over m d dx. The half cancels. Okay, and now, sorry. So this is fine. And one more thing I'll do. So x, what will be x? X will be psi star x psi dx. Okay. So that you please do It is a very simple exercise. Psi star psi. So if I take e to the power ikx, what will be psi star? E to the power minus ikx, and x in the middle, and you have e to the power ikx. So you can just cancel this, and you will get, you will see what will happen, minus infinity to plus in. This I leave to you. And this same thing will be there. There is nothing to do for px, but let us see px is very interesting. What is px? Sorry. What is px? Let us see. So that means psi star px operator psi dx. So you can do it. If you are clever, you should understand what to do. So generally what students can do is that they will put px h cross over I del x, then put psi e to the power ikx or e to the power minus ikx, then do this whole stuff, right? But if you are clever, you know that this free particle wave function is an eigenfunction of the px operator. So that means pxi is nothing but psi star. I can write a constant. This is not an operator. This is a constant. You remember px operator, it is an eigenvalue with plus k h cross or minus h cross k, right? Operator on psi, you will have either k h cross psi or minus h cross k psi. So that means either case. So these are my one of these px's. So this is the eigenvalue, not the operator. So I can write this, right? So and then you have this, so that so you have psi star psi, and you will do that. So that will give you nothing but the px operator, sorry, px value. Okay. So I think let us now make the connection. Is that slow enough? Let us move little fast, little go to the next step. Okay, so remember now our molecules are there. Let us come to chemistry. What happened and what needs to be done next? So our molecule was something like a benzene molecule, and we started with the free particle. Okay, so what is my next? My next thing that I can think of is that first I must keep this particle restricted. I must restrict it because it cannot just go in random free space, right? And that is precisely my second problem. So I come to my second model problem, my particle in a box, which all of you have read. It doesn't matter. So let us see what are the basics ingredients of this problem. What is happening that instead of particle being completely free, I have restricted the movement of the particle in between this box. So that means it can this box this side or in this side. So this is a good enough restriction to begin with, but it is still has a lot of imperfections. I'll talk about that later. But let us see that what happens to this problem. So there is a restriction in the problem. I have made a confinement. And for those of you who are listening to this talk, I can tell you, no matter however trivial this problem may look to you, but rest assured that many of you as a chemistry student will probably work in nanochemistry or some material science or all these kind of research areas. I must tell you that large portion of those research areas, research fields, even today, is actually based on this little model potential. So you understand this problem, it can help you a lot in your future. So this is how the particle is restricted. What happened? I have put a constant potential in. So it can be constant potential, just like your free particle. But I can also make it a zero to make it easier for me to deal with, because zero or constant doesn't make any sense, any difference, because it will only shift the eigenvalues by v. Okay, I have told you in the beginning class. So my box length is 0 to, okay, and what is happening to the boundaries? So you see this, there are two words I have written in this bracket, which is infinite and impenetrable. They are very important words, because if you think that they are not so important, then I'll ask you to do a problem where the box or where the box is not impenetrable. Okay, so that you will see that that is not going to be easy. So that is why I write this specifically. The box is rigid or infinite or impenetrable. That means the particle cannot penetrate this box in the boundary. It must stay inside. What I mean infinite means that this is a barrier of infinite height. That means particle cannot just go like this. It cannot just topple over like this. It cannot do like this. So you have completely tied its legs and hands. Okay. So this is what is given by this equation. Bx is equal to 0 in between 0 to x to a, and infinity otherwise. So everywhere it is actually infinite. Let me show the picture. I had taken a picture from your book. See this. Okay. So you can see this. So everywhere to this side it is infinite potential, and from similarly from this side. Remember what happens to the x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 0 a. At these 2 points your potential is actually infinite, not 0. Never make that mistake. A lot of people do that. So you're at the box boundaries, your potential is infinite, not 0. Okay, so that means if that happens, what is going to happen? Psi prime x, I have read that my basic principles of quantum mechanics has told that psi and d psi dx must be continuous, right? So I guess okay, so now that since we have opened this file, maybe I can just slowly take the derivations also, just to refresh your memory from whatever once you studied. Oh, sorry. Okay. So you can write the Schrodinger equation like this, right? There is no problem in that. It's simply you have written. Now what is my boundary condition? That at x is equal to 0 and x is equal to a. X is equal to 0 and x is equal to a, the wave function must vanish. So psi at x is equal to 0, psi at x is equal to a should be 0. Okay, and so this is my boundary condition. I think there is a you have done it. So you can put these values to get this kind of equation. 0 plus b is equal to 0 and psi a is equal to derive karo. So you have taken the derivatives. So you can do this little trick everywhere. You have done this. So then I come to this final expression, wave function. Very simple, profound expression, you know. And then you have said that n can take only values of 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., not from the 0. Right? This also you have learned. And then you have learned how to normalize the function. So eventually you got this normalization to be root over twice 2 by a. What is a? A is the length of the box. Right? So you can use this condition, and then you have seen that your energy, you can put this all these stuffs, right? Very simply you have derived n square h square over 8ml square. This expression is known to all of you. So we just want to discuss a few more things which you might have omitted. That's all. What do I see? That my energy in the free particle, my energy was E equals to h cross omega. Remember. So, and you said that all values of wave number was possible because it was a continuum state. But here I see I have only certain values of energy which are possible or allowed, corresponding wave functions to describe those states. So n is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and I see there is a change in the number of nodes as we go up and up and up. So I got a quantum number n, okay, and I see that there is a 0 point energy. What it means is that the energy, you can see that E is not zero. The lowest energy is not zero. The lowest energy is actually h square over 8m square. So quantization enters through by confinement, or which is the boundary condition. Okay, let us see if anybody wants, if anybody has any question. Is
Hello.
this okay?
Hello, sir. How do we know n start from 1?
How do you know n is start from? Because if you make n is equal to 1, if you make n is equal to 0, it's a trivial solution, because everywhere it is, that is not something we can accept. There it doesn't describe the physics, because particle is there inside the box. That is why we cannot take n is equal to 0. It is mathematically good solution, but it is not physically acceptable.
So sorry, sir, I could not get. Can you repeat once more?
See, you can have, when you solve a differential equation, you have many solutions. Okay, you have many solutions. But the thing is that on the arguments of the physics, we have to accept only those solutions which are acceptable to my system, right? So that is why we have these boundaries and quantum mechanical satisfaction of the wave function, requirements of the wave function to be well behaved, and all these kind of conditions, right? So if you have tons of solutions, out of that only you accept only one solution. Why? Because your physical system must be satisfied. So if you take n is equal to 0, what happens is that you will see that it is a trivial solution corresponding to psi is equal to 0 everywhere. But that I cannot accept, because the particle is inside the box. It cannot be 0 everywhere. So that is why I call it a trivial solution.
Okay.
Right? So my
Okay.
next, that is why I cannot accept n is equal to 0 in life. Then you say that, okay, if I want to talk, if I want to discuss like that, if I take a is equal to 0 solutions, then for every solution, for every system, you can find a 0 solution, right? But you have seen that for the hydrogen atom, I have energy, I have so many things, right? All this etc spectroscopy, they will not make any sense. You will say that, okay, mathematically it is 0, I'll take 0. That is not possible, right? So
Okay, sir.
that's why we cannot take it as an acceptable solution. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, so if that is the case, I can immediately write my psi x to the time dependent problem, because every time you have a time independent quantum mechanical problem, you have a corresponding time dependent problem too. That means not only you are interested in the space function, you also have to be interested in the space and time. So because these potential are time independent, I have told you in the very beginning classes, you can always write the time dependent part as e to the power minus I omega t. If you do not understand, I guess some of you understand, I am not very able, because it is long distance classes, it is difficult to know who knows what. But if you have difficulty in this, that don't worry too much about this, we will come to this later. But understand that this is the solution we have derived. This much derivation you should be able to do. Everybody should be conversant with this much derivation. Okay, so what I see is that the the stationary state is a standing wave. That means functions, amplitude of the wave functions remain 0 at all times at the edges. Remember this picture? See, the wave function must be 0 at the edges of the box. You see this box? These are the edges. Okay, 0 and a. It has to be 0. It has to be 0. Now if it is all the wave functions, no matter how many higher states it is, if it is 0 at the edges, can you tell me what is happening to d psi dx at these edges?
The wave
What
function
will be my d
vanishes.
psi dx at the edges?
That will be zero. The wave function vanishes.
I said d psi dx.
That will
Wave
be
function
also 0.
vanishes. Wave function vanishes, that is right. But what about d psi dx? Yes. Okay, let us see. Remember this question, okay? So amplitude of the wave function remains 0 at all times at the edges, and nodes remain fixed distances with time. Maybe you can, I think I told you in the next class. So let us see the quantization condition little bit in detail. So this was actually your quantization condition, k is equal to n pi a. Okay, remember this k in your pre-particle was taking all the values from 0 to infinity. But now I have increases in discrete amounts, not continuous. What is that discrete amount is governed by? So you can make this little trick. So lambda is equal to twice pi k, which is equal to twice pi over n pi over a. That means 2a over n. So that means I can write the length of the box A over 2. Now look at the picture. Look at the think about the box. The box is of length A. Okay, so that means I have written a few lines for you. In moving from psi n to psi n plus 1, number of half wavelength and number of nodes increase by 1. All of you know that the number by 1 as we go from n to n plus 1, right? So there is no way to add anything other than an integral number of lambda by 2 and still have nodes at the edges. That means what? That means I can never make a situation like this, that I am going from this. You see that the lambda by must fit into this box because your A is n times lambda by 2 and n is your number of n is the value of your quantum number, or also n also determines the number of the nth state. And then you say that eigen only if a half integral or integral numbers of lambda fit into the box. So that if your n into lambda by 2 do not fit into the box, that means doesn't take the value in the A, then you do not have a physically acceptable solution. You understand? This is subtle to understand, and you will slowly and slowly see that this actually is at the root of your all the magics in nanochemistry. You are changing the size and shape of the boxes, and you are doing lot of stuff, lot of interesting experiments, lot of fascinating stuff. But the basic principle is this: how much of the wavelengths you can actually, that is what you are actually tuning. You know, you are all the time tuning lot of stuff. So this is a size and shape of the size and shape effect, which was known from the very beginning. This is a 100-year-old problem. We are just seeing a lot of experimental realization of that fact. Okay, so you realize that in that length of the box, either integral or half integral lengths of the wave function must fit. You cannot fit more number of wavelengths because you have to keep your edges of the box also to be 0, right? If you put all these restrictions, have only certain wave functions available or applicable to you. That's your boundary conditions. Boundary conditions, you can explain it in many ways, but these are all the same manifestation. Okay, so now I think I wrote something. Okay, now you also can very easily do that. So what is the difference in energy between the nth plus 1th state and nth state? So you can see that there is an n square in the numerator. So n plus 1 square minus n square over over n square. So that will give you, apart from the constants will be, so this is 2n plus 1 over n square. Right? So what do I see? If n goes to infinity, this ratio actually tends to 0. What does it mean? What does it mean? Because this guy goes as n, this guy goes as n square. So n takes very large values. This guy actually dominates. So this ratio becomes to 0. That means what? That means this picture. That is the meaning. That means, look at this picture. That is what we call principle. So if I have an n is equal to 1, n is equal to 30, n is equal to 50 case. You see that you have read that if your quantum number increases, the quantum system approaches a classical system. You have read Bohr's correspondence principle, right? So you can see from the picture that is happening to the wave functions. This right side is the lowest resolution. Okay, this is the medium resolution, this is the highest resolution. So you can see that it almost looks like a constant value. You see that there are, of course, these are oscillations, but because your n is too large, it almost looks like a constant. For classical behavior, your n is actually something like this. You can read that. Your n is actually 10 to 1 into 10 to the power minus 10, sorry, 10 to the power 10 rather than equal to 50. So you can now understand from here to here to here to here what will happen if you make n is equal to 1 into 10 to the power 10. So that is what you will see. And the last thing I want to say about this problem is that it is not a eigenfunction of x operator. It is not an eigenfunction of the px operator too, because you can find out the commutators of h at x and h px and see that 0. You do this exercise. Okay, psi x is not an eigenfunction of the px operator. Psi x is not an eigenfunction of the x operator, and find out these things. See, I hesitate to derive these things because these things you have studied. It doesn't add anything to your knowledge. So I just refresh your memory. That's all. Whatever things need to be derived, I will derive. Okay. So these things you can see that. So okay. So one interesting stuff is that when you do the px, you will see that this expectation value will become 0. Okay, so that doesn't mean that particle doesn't have a momentum. Of course, the particle has a momentum. What it means is that the average momentum is actually 0. Expectation value means average momentum. So not that particle has 0 momentum, but because psi x is a superposition of two eigenfunctions. One is, you can always write sine I theta and e to the power minus I theta. Then you can do this exercise to see that it is actually going in the right side with the same momentum as it is in the right. Left to right and right to left is going with the same momentum, but with a different magnitude, sorry, with a negative sign. So that's why the average becomes 0. Particle has 0 momentum. Okay, now one interesting case is that length was 0 to a. Now I have a now you see that the sizes of the boxes, the topography, the shapes are very, very important. You can see that why it is. So now you can create something box and see what is changing of the same length. So suppose minus a by 2 to plus a by 2, so that the overall length remains a. Everything else is the same. So if you do that, you will see that I request you to do that. It is not very difficult. You can use the same logic. Remember, this potential is actually symmetric. If this potential is symmetric, that means my eigenfunctions also follow certain symmetry, right? Because the Hamiltonian commutes with the parity operator P. So that means, and that is what I see, I have now a set of wave functions, sets of quantum numbers. For the odd quantum numbers, I have this. For the 0 to 4 quantum numbers, I have 0. Sorry, this function. What happens is that functions must odd or even for a symmetric box. It's not the case for just the particle in a. So that is the interesting stuff in this case. Let us. How do I understand these three operators now? Hamiltonian operator, momentum operator, parity operator. I can also see that parity px operator actually do not commute. Is it? Everybody see that it is? How is it happening? Can you hear? Because there is a big rain here actually in our campus. Are you able to hear? We have a lot of ISER campus. Can anybody hear?
Yes, sir, we can hear, but your voice is breaking.
Oh,
Sometimes your
breaking.
voices are breaking.
Yeah, because we have a storm here, a lot of thunderstorm going on here. Okay. So anyway, let us work out the commutative and PX, work it out. The voice better? Hello? Yes. Bolo?
So your voice is still breaking, sir.
Can you just better? This is better. The connection here, because I hope that it. Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. हेलो हाँ बोलो बोलो अब ठीक है
Yes, sir. It's fine.
ठीक है okay so let us work out this exercise between p parity operator and the momentum operator please work out थोड़ा लिखो लिखो देखो क्या प्रॉब्लम है I give you 1 minute's time to all of you to work out very easy just do it so you take a function the parity operator on it and you have an operator which is the momentum operator which is h cross over I ddx operator right is it going to commute excuse me anybody has answer maybe you can write a little bit in the journal okay so you have the parity operator and px operator okay
Sir, we can't see your screen.
oh you can't see why oh I'm sorry I thought I was present now okay can you see now
Yes, sir.
okay very good so let us see pxi okay you write h cross over I can write simple ddx instead of partial derivatives because it is only one sorry oh I'm sorry this is let us make it pxp okay then that will solve so let us so let make this be the momentum okay so px so this and then p okay now fx minus p operator and then h cross over I d dx fx what I see so h cross I is there so I can so now I have to operate ddx operator on this guy but what is this guy pfx what is the meaning of pfx Pfx means so H cross over I ddx. So Pfx means what? P, sorry, F minus X, right? Because that is what is the job of the parity operator. It turns X into minus X, right? And then minus P operator, which is on H cross over I, and df dx, right? Is that clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So you can do the rest part. It is very trivial, and so that it is actually not zero. It cannot be zero because there is a ddx operator which will change sign upon p, right? So how it can be zero? So the px operator will not be with the p operator. Okay, and if that happens, because there is a h cross over I ddx which will change sign under x to x minus x, and there's no such time in the p operator, right? So there will be a mismatch of that minus x. So that means I saw the out of these three operators, I can find a set of now this portion of this discussion. So I have seen that I can find out a system which is a pre, or I can find out a system which is a symmetric box problem, symmetric box particle in a box problem, where the eigenfunctions can be the eigenfunctions of the Hamiltonian and the operator. Right? In this case, it can be zero. And I have also seen that in the pre-particle problem, the wave function is also simultaneously eigenfunctions of the momentum operator, and hpx was zero. So that means which is simultaneously eigenfunctions of the h and p, I can find a system which is simultaneously eigenfunctions of the h and px operator, but I cannot find a system as of our experience which is an eigenfunctions of h, px and p operator, because they if to be eigenfunctions of all these three operators, then all the commutators between all these three operators must vanish, which is not happening because px and p is not commuting. Right? Now the question is that why we are so interested about this discussion. It is necessary. So the first conclusion is that I cannot find that any of these two systems that I have studied so far, either pre-particle problem or the particle in a box, where I can have a mutually compatible set of operators amongst H, Px and P. The operators are not commuting exclusively with each other. Two of them commuting with H, but so H is commuting with P, H is commuting with Px, but P and Px are not commuting with each other. Now the question, so I do not find a system where H, P are simultaneously eigenfunctions. Is that clear? Let me remind you, when you have studied your hydrogen atom problem, you might remember that your eigenfunction was several operators. One of them was Hamiltonian operator, the other was LG operator, then other was S square operator, then another was operator. There are more operators too, but at least at this point. So that means the solution of the hydrogen atom that you solved, it was simultaneously several operators. We share them good quantum numbers. It means all these operators actually commuted with each other. That is why you proved that H commutes with L square, H commutes with LZ, L square commutes with SZ, and similarly H can commute with S square, H can commute with SZ, and all the L operators will commute with SZ. All the L operator will commute with this because they are two totally different coordinates. Now the question is that why it is important to have a really compatible set of eigen operators. Who can answer this question? I have told you what is the technical details, but why is it important for me to have? I always want to find out which is simultaneously eigenfunctions of more than one. Why is so? What is my necessity in physics and chemistry? Have you thought about this problem? Have you thought about this part of the discussion? Anybody who can say anything is good. Let us see. Please try to answer whatever you have in your mind. Yes? It is open to everybody. Please say whatever you can say. Hello. अरे बोलो बोलो कुछ तो बोलो. See, that is the most important concept. But have you got the question? Okay, let us forget about the answer. Have you got the question? Everybody got the question? Somebody please. Is the question clear to you? Hello?
Excuse me, sir, can you ask the question again because your voice were breaking and we didn't get your question.
Okay, so you should tell me. I have been saying, okay, the question is that why we want to find out an eigenstates which is mutually or simultaneously eigenfunction operators. In other words, why we are discussing about these commutators. Is that clear now? That means why I am interested to know whether my eigenstate is simultaneously eigenfunctions of more than one operators through the commutator relation. Is that now clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hello?
Yes, sir. Sir, commutator means they will share the same eigenfunction. So it will be
Yes.
easier. It will be easier to because as they share the common eigenfunction, so we can go with the common thing.
Yeah, that is fine. That is what we do. But the question is that what is the answer the question in the text? You really understand why it is very, very necessary actually for me. Especially when you want to, why is that? I tell you answer, okay? The answer is that, you remember in the first class, when I took the attendance, I was asking all of you, where you are. Some of you are in that I am in this place X, but some I am in this place called Tamil Nadu or Bihar. So if somebody gives me an answer, for example, say I am in Sambalpur, I'm just taking this. Let me take Sambalpur, just nothing special about it. But if somebody is better, answer is more, because this gives you a more precise answer, isn't it? Hello? We always want more information about a system. We want more precise information. If you just have one quantum number in the hydrogen atom, say suppose n, that would not in the states give you the complete of the state. The moment you only n, I also need L values proper. I also need proper ML values. That means you are slowly and slowly Just like today somebody asked about the solutions. Out of infinite solutions, you are slowly and slowly going to the unique. You understand? Out of infinite solutions, you are trying to find a particular solution. You are trying to find only one unique solution. How do you do that? By specifying more and more values. The same thing with the experiment. Okay. So that is why we are interested to find out. I hope I made it clear. If it is tell, I'll make it clear. I'll try. So that is why we are interested to find out the commutator relations in a quantum mechanical problem. Okay. So, and that is a common trick we'll find. We'll use it. So now with this, okay. So let me show you. Now my box, has to be slowly and slowly improved, close to the realistic system. So how do I do that? My first attempt to do this is that increase the dimension. So here is a 2 and 3 dimensional boxes. That means the same problem, I want to do it in 2D and 3D. Why? Because 1D was on in a line. 2D little better, it's a rectangular box, and 3D means you can make a real 3D box. You know that in the atoms, it is not a box. So we'll see how the sphere makes difference. That is a separate question. But let us see what happens in the 2D and 3D boxes. So the Schrodinger equation, the box is just like your X, but it is in the 3 dimension, but it is the 3 lengths of the box, right? A, B, and C in the 3 dimensions. Or otherwise it is infinity. So you can write the Schrodinger equation. So now this potential, you see that it is a multiplicative potential. That means you can actually separate the problem into X and Y. Separate. So that means I can write a separate solution for X, separate solution for Y, separate solution for the Z. So that is what I do by the help of the separation of coordinates. So I take this psi as a product function of my X and Y and G functions. Okay. If I do write this equation, right, and then by taking this, then I can write three one-dimensional equations. Okay, 3 one-dimensional equations. Each of them will be like your particle in a 1D box, which I did for X. Similarly, you can write an equation for Y direction, exactly same equation for the Z direction. So that means you can see that this is the X equation, this is the Y equation, this is the Z equation. And no wonder your psi is nothing but X function into Y function into G function. Okay, so that is what has happened. N pi xa, n pi yy, n pi zc is a normalization constant, and total energy just like nx square m square, similarly for the y, similarly for the z. Okay, so what is interesting to note that if you change the length of the boxes, these are arbitrary lengths. So this is a not equal to b not equal to c. So if I make certain symmetry in the box, that means it too big. Say for example, A is equal to B is equal to C, I can have degenerate system. Okay, you can see that if the total energy can be written as the sum of independent terms corresponding to different energy, then the wave function is a product of the individual terms. Okay, and if I have 3 quantum numbers now, nx, ny, ng. So the moment I have increased the dimension, there is a possibility of degeneracy. How degeneracy is coming? You can see that if I take 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2. So if I take nx is equal to a 1, 1, 2 state, I have actually 3 such states, depending on the nx, ny, ng values. Okay, the box higher dimension, there is a possibility of degeneracy. Okay, so now I completed a 3-dimensional problem. Okay, in the next class we'll see how to improve the box, because this is not a realistic box. Okay, so if those of you, so you can see take this topic with this topic, potential step. Okay, so we'll discuss this problem. So I'll take any more question from you. That is the end of today's class. So please say if you have any question. If there is any question, and in the next class I plan assignments. So those will be very simple assignments. You can do it for your practice, warm-up exercise kind of stuff. Any question? Okay, if there is no question, then I guess we call it a day. Okay. Okay, then see you with the, so the Monday, okay? Is the Monday 12 o'clock, right? My class is. Surabhi is there?
Yes, sir.
So Monday 12 o'clock, okay?
Hello.
So it is Monday 12 o'clock, right?
Hello.
Monday 12 next class.
Yes, sir. Monday, 12 o'clock, sir.
Okay, very good. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, sir. You too.
Okay. Okay, bye bye.